Hello viewers, welcome back to the Moose Mobile Auto Repair channel, and today we're working on a 2010 Toyota Corolla with the 1.8 liter engine, and today we are going to be replacing the entire steering knuckle assembly on the right front because the wheel bearing has some play in it, and so we are going to be replacing the entire steering knuckle because that's easier than pressing in the wheel bearing. So a little bit of some history on this vehicle. I already pressed in the left front and that was okay, but I had some issues in the right front because previously I had already replaced the steering knuckle with a Moog steering knuckle, and I believe that the steering knuckle inside is worn out, in which the wheel bearing is pressed in, and so I've already replaced the wheel bearing on this side 3 times, but there was an issue with it. It always had play in it, and so now I'm just replacing the entire steering knuckle assembly. Now on the other side, on the left front, I didn't have any issues pressing in the wheel bearing because that's the original steering knuckle, and it wasn't worn out. Now when pressing in new wheel bearings, you need to make sure that the hub is fully supported before you press it in. Otherwise, it's going to damage the new wheel bearing. And so I made sure I did all of that, but I'm starting to believe that the Moog steering knuckle assemblies are one-time use, and you shouldn't press in another wheel bearing if the first one has gone bad, because the bore inside the knuckle seems to be too worn out to accept the new wheel bearing. So I'm just replacing it again with a whole new assembly. So as you can see, there's a tiny bit of play when you shake the wheel at 12 and 6 o'clock. And so that's how I know that the wheel bearing is bad. So we are just going to be replacing the whole steering knuckle on this. So the first thing we're going to do is to remove the wheel. This has aftermarket rims. So now the wheel is exposed. So we are just going to turn this so we can get the ABS wheel speed sensor out. Over here, it's a 10 millimeter bolt, and we are also going to take the tie rod out as well. This is a 10 millimeter. The wheel bearing, the old wheel bearing was recently replaced on this, so everything is going to come out easy on this vehicle. And now we are going to remove the cotter pin. This outer tie rod end is an aftermarket Moog tie rod, so it's an 18 millimeter nut. I believe the original, I think it's a 17 or 15, I'm not sure. So we are going to remove this. Leave that in there. Now we have to turn this to take the brake caliper off. It's a 17. You can hang it up or you can leave it on the side over here. Remove the brake rotor. Now I'm probably going to hang up the caliper so it's not resting against the brake hose. So we'll hang it up onto the coil spring of the strut. So now we are going to turn this. We have to remove the axle nut. Before we do that, we'll just get the ABS wheel speed sensor out of the way. This is an aftermarket 32 millimeter 6-point axle nut because I had the axles replaced recently. It's a 32. The original Toyotas will be a 12-point 30 millimeter. So you can unstake this if you want, but it's not staked too much, so it should be safe to remove the axle nut just like that without damaging anything. Should come out easily. So the two nuts at the bottom and the one bolt, 17 mil for the lower ball joint. And push or pull on the control arm, however you are positioned. And remove the ball joint out of there. And remove the axle out of the knuckle. So what's left now, we need to remove the two 22 millimeter bolt and nut that's holding the strut. Make sure to note the orientation on which side the nuts are on. So this one is pointing towards the front of the vehicle. So make sure you put them on the same way. 22 wrench and a 22 socket. And just be ready to catch the steering knuckle so it doesn't fall onto the floor when you get this out. And the whole thing just comes out. So now this is the steering knuckle. You can see it says Moog on it. So I'm just replacing it with another one. And we need to transfer over the old ball joint onto the new knuckle before we install this back in. So if you want to use an impact, you can. This is an aftermarket lower ball joint that I had replaced 8 years ago. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I supposedly thought I was doing an upgrade. So you're better off just keeping the Toyota lower ball joints. So anyhow, it's a 19 millimeter. I'm using a shallow socket with a U joint and an extension. So we are going to remove this. Just easier to remove it with an impact. And it's out. We may need to hammer it a tiny bit to get it out. So just temporarily install the nut and just give it a small whack. If that doesn't work, you can hit the steering knuckle here instead to shock it, because we're not going to be reusing the steering knuckle. We can use a puller of some sort. No, it's loose. Just make sure there's no play on the old ball joint before you decide to reuse it. So now we have the new steering knuckle. We are probably going to put a little bit of blue thread locker here before we install it, just for safety. So we have some blue thread locker. So we're gonna put a little bit, because I don't know if there's if there used to be a nylock on this. So we need to put uh, something for safety on the threads. Install the nut. We're going to torque it afterwards. We just need to run it through a little bit. I just needed to tighten it up until it's no longer moving inside the knuckle. And we are just going to torque it afterwards. So the torque spec for this is 76 foot-pounds. So we'll try to torque it from here as we are holding the steering knuckle. I may have to use my foot to hold it down. So before I install this, I'm just going to put some grease here just to prevent some rust. Prevent rust. And some inside the splines where the axle goes through. You don't want to get anything inside where the wheel speed sensor goes. This is just something that I like to do in case I need to take something apart. A little bit in the hub. I already have some grease on the axle itself, so I don't need to put too much more grease then it's going to be too much then. So now we are ready to install the steering knuckle. So the easiest way to do that is to get this inside the axle hub first. Get the axle inside the hub and install the ball joint into the control arm so you don't have to fight with this thing. It's going to make things a whole lot easier, and just get the nuts and the bolts started from underneath. Just get the nuts and the bolts started first so nothing comes out. So the Moog steering knuckle assembly, they provide the original 30 millimeter 12 point axle nut socket, but I carry axle nuts in stock, so I'm just going to be using this. I put some grease on it. These axle nuts are an M22 by 1.5 threads. I just want to use the same 32 mil, so it's the same on both sides, because that's what the aftermarket axles came with. I like using this because it's easier for me than the Toyota 12 point 30 millimeter axles. Just it does not really matter. It's just a preference for me when I replace an axle or something. I just like to use these ones. And also, every time you remove the axle nut on a vehicle, it should always be replaced with a brand new one. So now we are going to install the strut bolts. And in case if any of you guys ask, you do need to get a wheel alignment after the job is done, because removing the strut bolts is going to disturb the camber settings, and in turn that's going to change the toe setting slightly. So even if you do get this dead on by using a gauge, it's still going to be off a slight amount regardless. So it's best to get a wheel alignment after this job is done. So we are going to install the strut bolts now. Line them up first. So before you tighten this up, you want to push this. This is adjustable, so you want to push this inwards all the way as much as you can to get it onto where it was. You don't want it outwards. Depending if you want to do a custom camber adjustment, but usually I push it all the way in and I tighten up the bolts that way, because these can be adjusted maybe probably like 1 or 2 degrees at most. But usually I push it in all the way before I tighten it up. So I'm just going to push against the steering knuckle. We are going to torque everything down after. These are 177 foot-pounds. So now you can reinstall the wheel speed sensor back. If you need to clean it, you can clean it with some brake cleaner before you install this back. So we are going to tighten this up. I think the torque spec for this is maybe like 6 or 7 foot-pounds at most. Now we are going to reinstall the outer tie rod end back into the knuckle. And we are going to install a new cotter pin afterwards. It's an 18. Once again, just going to run it through a little bit. Torque spec for this is 36. Now, if the hole is not lined up to install the cotter pin, do not back off the castle nut. You just want to tighten it a tiny bit more until it lines up. So in this case, I might have to tighten it a bit more to line it up so I can get the cotter pin in. So install the cotter pin. You can bend it like a pro if you want to, or whatever. I'm just using my fingers. You can use a pair of side cutters or on whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong answer for this, as long as it's secured inside there and that it won't come out. So I still need to tighten up the axle nut a little bit, and then we need to install the brakes. I'm just using a torque stick so I don't over torque the axle nut, just to run it through. We're going to put some anti-seize compound on the hub. Try not to mix it with the wheel bearing grease. I'm just going to clean the brake rotor in case I got anything on it. Install it to the hub. Install the brake rotor to the hub. I'm just going to put the axle nut, put this in here to hold it in place. I think the lug nut is too small to fit over it. So we're just going to remove that. Aftermarket wheels. Just to hold it in place. Turn the steering knuckle so we can easily install the brake rotor, the brake caliper assembly. To 17 mil. I'll post the torque specs for those bolts. I think it's like 79 or something, but I'll put it on the screen if you guys want to torque it. So now we're just going to run the bolts through for the lower ball joint to the control arm. 2 nuts and 1 bolt. At this particular moment, I'm doing everything in such an order so that I don't have to keep on uh, winding my torque wrench up and down. So I did the outer tie rod, which is 36. The next one of the lower ball joint is 66. And we are going to do the axle nut, which is 159. And then the strut tower bolt, 177. So I don't have to keep on going up and down with the torque wrench to change the the setting. 66 foot-pounds. That's good. So we are going to turn the wheel, and we are going to torque the axle to 159. So we can use a drift chisel or punch or whatever to hold into the brake rotor. And we are going to torque this to 159 foot-pounds. It's imperative that you torque this properly because uh, this is going to squeeze against the inner and outer races of the wheel bearing to set the correct preload for the wheel bearing. And so you want to make sure that you are doing this correctly, because if you don't, it's going to reduce the lifespan of the wheel bearing. So you want to make sure that you are torquing things properly, because I've seen some people, they run an impact with this and then that's it, they call it a day. And that's not good, because there's a specific tightness to set the preload for the wheel bearing. So you want to make sure you torque it properly. It's 159 right there. Now you want to stake the axle nut. You don't need to go too overboard with it, just enough so this doesn't back off. And that's good. Torque specs for the strut, 177. So now I think everything is all good and done here. To make sure that the caliper is installed properly. The flex hose is running parallel. That's not twisted. Make sure everything is tight, and then and that's it. Probably clean up the brake rotor, reinstall the wheel. The wheel is 76 foot-pounds. Go for a road test. Make sure everything is okay. There's no more noise and no more play, and then that's it. So now the wheel is reinstalled with a new steering knuckle, and there's no more play. The play is gone now. So in case if you want the same Moog steering knuckle for the Corolla, LK032 is the part number. It fits, I believe, from 2009 to 2019 Corolla. It comes in a box like this and stuff. It comes with a new axle nut if you don't have a spare one lying around, and that's it. So that's going to conclude the removal and installation for the right front steering knuckle assembly, the wheel bearing on this 2010 Toyota Corolla. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and please don't forget to hit that bell notification if you haven't done so. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.